The word on the street is that the Fed is going to start cutting rates. And I'm here to tell you why interest rates coming down isn't going to save the housing market and buyers are priced out. Right here, Treasury yields fall as Powell signals Fed rate cuts could come soon. Key word here is could come soon. This isn't a definite. And the news articles and everybody was stating that, oh, they're cutting rates and they're going to cut rates and cut rates and cut rates some more. Well, could is not saying Fed rate cut after Fed rate cut is coming. Now, if we dissect this a little bit further, I'm also going to share with you some information of what's going on. Just to give you a little taste here, let me share this with you. US bankruptcies hit the highest level since COVID. Let that sink in. Now we're going to dissect this, but first I want to come back to Jerome Powell. And if you haven't, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button. Nobody's got your back like Dinko The Realtor. You're not going to be able to find this information anywhere else. Again, we're going to hit this up. U.S. bankruptcies hit the highest level since COVID. And I'm going to give you a further analysis breakdown of what's going on. So if you haven't yet, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's dive into what's going on here. We'll get back to this portion here. Now, Powell said during his speech at the Fed's annual gathering in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, that financial conditions may warrant, and again, keyword is may warrant, interest rate decreases. He also said that the bank is moving carefully. So this is not saying Fed rate cut after Fed rate cut to the monetary policy. Now, Powell also noted that while the U.S. unemployment rate remains low, that the policies are extremely restricted right now in restricted territory, and that shifting some of the risk may warrant adjusting our policy stance. So he is saying, hey, we are seeing that the labor market is not doing well, the economy is not doing well, so we do see Fed rate cuts being necessary. However, they do still have to tame inflation. Now we'll get to that here in a bit as well, but right here, Americans can't afford houses. Americans can afford only 28% of homes on the market. And if the interest rates go down by 0.5%, that does not mean that the floodgates are going to open and everybody can afford a house. Even if they come down by 1%, are the floodgates going to open? No, they're not, because 28% of people can only afford the homes that are out there. Then if we jump to 40%, it's still 60% that can't. Or if it's 50-50, that's still 50% of people in America that can't afford. And that's not what the housing market's supposed to look like. And again, key word here that Jerome Powell used is we have to carefully, we are in restricted territory. So may, could, shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? So this is not indicating that there's going to be an aggressive Fed rate cut coming where they're just going to cut every single Fed meeting. That's all. We're seeing that right here, American wages have been growing over the past 5 years, surging 15.7% between 2018 and now. But that's not nearly as fast as home prices. Now, home price to income ratio has grown massively over the past few decades, going from 3.5 times to 5 times from 1985 to 2025. That just shows you that every decade, homes become more and more unaffordable for the average American. Now, when I'm at listing appointments, I'm going to tell you that the older the seller, usually the harder they are to get to actually list the house at the correct price. They don't have big plans on moving. Kids are usually out of the house and they're willing to stay there. This is why we need recessions in a capitalist free market, so that people don't feel like they're sitting on gold their entire life. And those people are actually the hardest ones to get to list and drop their price. They're all, wait, I don't care, I have my retirement coming in. And it's the elderly that are always saying, the work ethic of the younger generation, I had 18% interest rates, and yet when we actually look at the raw numbers, it's more unaffordable now, even with these lower interest rates, because everything has gone up substantially in price. Now, if we dissect a little bit further down here, in concrete terms, $325,000 home was affordable to the median household in 2019. And in today's median household can only afford $298,000. That is a drop of $30,000, even though income has gone up 15% because of what interest rates and what has happened to food. Food prices have skyrocketed, right? Now, what this also does indicate, let's say that prices do start coming down and so do interest rates, and people do keep their jobs at a certain pace. Well, we do see that the average, if it was 325,000 with income going up 15%, that might be 370,000, 380,000. And this is why I say that if you're expecting a prices drop of 50%, that might be something that can only happen if we do see a Great Depression, which I'm going to actually touch base on here at the end of this video. So you want to stay tuned for that as well. And well, let's just start diving into things here, and then I'll start dissecting stuff a little bit further with y'all. If we look at the inventory levels, much higher, this blue-purple line at the top, than years past. And we see that it's kind of stagnated, that growth isn't continuing here in the end of summer, beginning of fall like it has in the years past, but we see it's much more elevated. Now that means sellers, and I've shown in the previous video, are taking their homes off the market and are becoming more desperate. And we are seeing price drops. Now, you do need a recession. You do need a hit to the economy for sellers to really crack. Because if the government keeps bailing out, keeps printing money, unemployment rates not going up, people that have equity in their home, people that are not struggling, that have retirement plans coming in, that have income that is actually able to have them pay that monthly bill, or if they don't have a mortgage, right? But I've shared in the previous video as well that people with a mortgage of 6% plus are actually on pace to start matching those 3% mortgages. So that's all going up. If you haven't watched that video, make sure you do. But you're seeing that this inventory is much higher. So all of this is happening as only 28% of Americans can afford houses, and US bankruptcies hit the highest level since COVID. And actually, if we continue dissecting this, right here, the S&P Global Market Intelligence, the research and data arm of the credit rating agency, found that filings by large public and private companies, and again, this is large public and private companies, this isn't just your mom and pop shop. They're saying large public and private companies rose to 71 companies last month from 66 in June, marking it the highest monthly tally since July of 2020. And that's not a great reference point. Lockdowns, where do we actually land if we go further back? And I'm glad that they actually covered that in this article. So as far as 2025, meanwhile, the total of 446 bankruptcies filings is the highest for this 7-month stretch since 2010. Now, what happened in 2010? Well, there was a 2008, 2009 Great Recession, the financial crisis, and 2010 was not a pretty year. So here we are, again, another data point that is taking us back to not such a good time. Sales are the lowest since 1995. Bankruptcies are the highest since 2010. People are defaulting on car loans. Car repos are at the highest level since the Great Recession. You keep seeing this, and this is why I'm saying things have not settled until things actually settle in the economy. And of course, the economy has to break in order for housing to fully break. People need a roof over their head. They're going to give up on everything but their house. But you're seeing this is another data point that we have to look at. And again, inventory much more elevated year over year. Now, right here, if you take a look, Google it. Tariffs jumped to the highest level since the Great Depression. New tariffs snap into effect, raising import tax. Right here, new tariffs snap, raising to the highest since the Great Depression. If you scroll down, State of the U.S. tariff, August 1st, budget lab, after consumption tariffs will be 17, highest since 1935. And you keep scrolling down, you're seeing videos, what's going on here. You continue scrolling down, Donald Trump's tariffs average hit the highest level since the Great Depression, and tariffs are not good news for the economy. Economists all around the world and top-notch economists in the US do not like, this was the whole beef between Trump and Elon Musk, is that Elon Musk absolutely doesn't like tariffs and doesn't like the big beautiful bill that's going to add more to the national deficit than any other bill previously. And if we Google some more stuff here, so right here, tariffs particularly during the Great Depression by President Hoover, you see right here, significantly worsened the Great Depression by causing a global trade war, leading to decreased international trade, higher prices, and increased job losses. Though they did not cause the depression itself, the act raised import duties to protect American businesses. Sound familiar? They do say history repeats itself, and look at history to not make the same mistakes. Pay attention to some of the economists. And right here, other countries retaliated with their own tariffs, crippling the global trade, extending the economic downturn. Again, resemblances to what's going on right now. So we have resemblances to the Great Depression, to the Great Financial Crisis, and I've been saying that this year is mimicking what happened in 2022, and we know that in 2022, the housing market here in Utah peaked at $600,000 in May of 2022. We had 9 consecutive months of price drops. January of 2023, The median price was $510,000. So essentially here, prices dropped upwards of 15%. Nationwide, it was 10%. Now, depending what's happening with foreclosures, with the repos, with the economy, there's a lot of different data points that we have to pay attention to. So give me a call. Let's set up a free consultation, see if we're a good fit for one another. If we are, I'm not going to use any fear mongering. I'm going to give you data as it comes available, as the changes are happening, and you can make that decision if you want to buy at the, fall, winter months of this year. If you want to buy next year, the year after, that's entirely up to you. We can see if we're a good fit. That consultation is free. That way you're going to have the data that you need to be able to time this market and to be able to see what's actually going on. Now back to the tariffs right here. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act aimed to protect American farmers and businesses by drastically increasing tariff rates on imports to boost domestic prices and economic activity. Now, we know that's the same trend that they're going for, and we see that the markets are not responding. With the labor statistics coming out, the economy is not in great standing, though the stock market has started rallying up, but there's also one catch that is different than any time before in history. When the dips happen, the retail investor, your average Joe, jumps in and starts buying stocks because there are influencers out there. So essentially, nobody knows what's really going on right now because the amount of technology, the amount of information, the amount that everybody's doing, they can't even do a controlled demolition on the economy. And I think that they were trying to do that, and that has actually went away from them. So the question is, did they create a bigger recession, or are they going to print their way out of this? And are we going to have to wait until 2030 for that big recession to come, right? And right here, if you take a look, signed into law June 1930 by President Herbert Hoover, it significantly raised import duties on both industrial and agricultural goods. Now, if we actually go to this article over here, you're actually going to see right down here that through the first 7 months of the year, bankruptcies were heavily concentrated in the industrial and consumer sectors. There you go, showing you that history is repeating itself when it comes to tariffs. If you've been watching my videos, you know I'm not a fan of the Democrat Party. I'm not a fan of the Republican Party. I didn't like Trump. I didn't like Kamala. I didn't like Joe Biden. I think that we need to put somebody in office that actually has a brain, and I don't know when that's actually going to happen. And right now, out of all of the politicians that are out there, even though he's not, because the Fed is not part of the government, but the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, is the only person that actually states logical things. The only person out there that actually gives valid information. The deficit shouldn't be running this high with historically low unemployment rate. Unemployment is low, but if we see layoffs come in, unemployment's going to skyrocket. We need monetary policies, and this guy is just stuck between a rock and a hard place because he doesn't control the economy, and he actually says some things. Now, he's also has his hands tied, and I'm sure that he has things that he's doing in his own self-interest as well. It seems that everybody in these politicians and elites, that's what they care about. But we need to stand united as a country and follow the information. That's it. What's going on? Make sure that you hit me up when it's time to buy. I'm going to share this data with you. We're going to follow what's going on with the tariffs, what's going on with the economy, what's going on with the bankruptcies, with the affordability. That way, what Jerome Powell is stating, that way you just have all the information that you need. If you haven't, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. When you do need a realtor, call me. My contact information is down below. I have your back here in Utah. Let's set that free consultation up, see if we're a good fit for one another. There's not going to be any fear mongering. I'm going to keep giving you this data and the data that's coming here in the fall into the winter months that you're not going to be able to find anywhere else.